All right. Now we're doing freeCodeCamp, JavaScript algorithms and data structures, object-oriented programming, iterate over all properties. All right. So we have now seen two kinds of properties, the own properties and the prototype properties. Own properties are defined directly on the object instance itself, and prototype properties are defined on the prototype. All right. So let's keep going. So here's the example of the own property in case we forgot. We've got the constructor here, which has the function and then bird, and then we're going to have as the argument the name, and then we're going to have this dot name be the key, and then we're going to have this name, which is this name, as the value. All right. And then right here we're going to have bird.prototype.numLegs equals 2, and this is the prototype property. All right. So this is defined on the prototype according to this, and this is defined on the object instance itself. And I'll show you more about it when we get over here, right? So now we're going to actually create an object using this thing, and we're going to let duck equal new bird, and we'll call it Donald, all right? So now we've got Donald Duck as the object, all right? So here is how we add duck's own properties to the array ownProps and prototype properties to the array prototypeProps. So basically, this is how we separate. This is how we can put the own properties in one array and the prototype properties in another array, right? So we're going to start off by having an ownProps empty array and then a prototypeProps empty array. And then we're going to have that for in loop right here where we're going to say let property in duck. And then for the first part, we'll say if duck and then dot has own property, which we learned a long time ago. And then property, we're going to push the property into ownProps. All right. So I don't know if you remember when we went over this like a long time ago, but I was always thinking that it was just own, like, oh, it has its own property. I didn't realize that own was the actual title of the property until this lesson right here. A little vague, a little bit, but what can we do? We can't do nothing about it. We're learning, right? So anyway, so this is the title of the thing, has own property. Anyway, let's get to the next part. So if it is the own property, we're going to push it into the ownProps, or else we're going to push the prototype. We're going to push the property into the prototypeProps. A little confusing, I know. Anyway, so when we do console.log ownProps, we're going to have name equals no, not even equals. We're just have the name property, and then when we do prototypeProp. What are we doing? prototypeProps, it's going to have numLegs. So name for the ownProps and numLegs for the prototypeProps. And so now we're going to add all of the own properties of Beagle to the array ownProps. And then we're going to add all the prototype properties of dog to the array prototypeProps. All right. If it couldn't be any more confusing, they threw it in like that, huh? All right. So let's get to it. So basically, we've got this whole setup from here to here already done for us. But let's look at some things before we get cracking, all right? So first things first, let's do this. Let's say console.log Beagle, all right? And as you can see, it's got this key value pair, the property name, and then it's also got the value Snoopy right here for the property. Key value. Hopefully you remember the differences. Anyway, but what we don't see, we do not see the prototype numLegs equals 4. We don't see that in here, and that's because it's a prototype, and so it's basically hidden from outside of the thing, outside of the object or inside the object or whatever. I don't really get it myself, but it does have this prototype property associated with it, right? And to prove that, if we say Beagle dot numLegs, we'll see it's got 4, right? So if we have Beagle, comma, Beagle dot numLegs, we've got the object here and also 4, all right? So we'll just leave it like that for now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put this property inside of this array, and we're going to put this property right here, numLegs, inside of this array, all right? So to do that, Actually, first, let's do another thing real quick. Let's say let all props equal an empty array, all right? So we're going to come down here and we'll do basically this part, but without the if statement, all right? So we'll say for let property in Beagle, and then we'll have, we're gonna be iterating through this object right here. And what we're gonna do is say all props dot push, and we'll push in whatever property it lands on, property. And you'll see when we come down here and say console.log, all props, you'll see it's got name and it's got num legs in it. So it's got this and it's got this in it, all right? So now that we've established that, what we want to do is put this, the own property, in its own, why do they got to call it that? In its own array. And then we want to put prototypeProps. This, we want to put the prototype property in its own array, all right? So we're going to come down here and we're going to say, we're going to do just like this now. So this is the part that it's looking for. So we're going to say for let property in Beagle, all right? We could have copy pasted, but I forgot. Anyway, so what we're going to do here is say if. So if Beagle dot has own property, all right? So if it has own property, not its own property, but an own property, what we're going to do is push property, that property inside property. So we're going to push that property inside of here, all right? No. Yes. What we're going to do is we're going to come down here and say ownProps dot push, and we're going to push property. All right. So, and then let me come down here. Let's comment this out as if it didn't happen yet. All right. We're going to come down here and say console.log, and we're going to push what do we have up here? Own property and prototypeProps. Okay, so we'll do ownProps and prototypeProps. All right. So you see right now they're empty arrays, but when we do this push, now the name's in there because it's an own property, right? Because it has an own property, not its own property, an own property. Okay. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so let's get back to it. So now we're going to say else like this. So if it's not an own property, we're going to push, we're going to do prototypeProps dot push the property. All right. And so now we've got num legs in there. Now let's change property to something. Let's change it to like P. Why not? Just so it's something not confusing, right? All right. And so we're going to let P in Beagle. Okay, so hopefully this makes more sense now. So now that we've done that, we put the we pushed the own props. This one is now in its own array, and then this one here is now in its own array. And that's basically how that worked. Honestly, it's so confusing. I know it's so confusing, but it is just so confusing. But whatever, this will work pretty much, I hope. Let's see. Cross your fingers, run the test, looks good, and submit it. All right. Now we're on to understand the constructor property, and we'll see you next time.